What's going on, everybody? Welcome to an action-packed episode of Fandom Talk. I got a lot of people on here with me today. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fandom Talk. Let's go ahead and run down our guests on the show today. I got my man. He's been gone for about 2 weeks. Maybe it felt like 2 months. My man Kevin Garland. What's going on, Kevin?
Hey, what's happening? Ready to talk about these movies?
What's going on? Then I got my main man, Jeremy Branch. What's going on, Jeremy, from Be Terrible Production?
What is going on, everybody? Man, I love these big panels because it gives me an opportunity to interrupt, talk over everybody, put in my 2 cents even when nobody's asking for it. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. We first going to start off with some of the most hot news that's going on right now. This past weekend, they had Star Wars Celebration. And I also released a teaser trailer for The Last Jedi. If you haven't seen my little trailer review I did, it's there on the Fandoms Anonymous YouTube page. So I'm going to pass this over to the Star Wars guys real quick. Kevin, tell us what you thought about Star Wars Celebration and what you thought about the trailer and everything from this past week.
Man, Star Wars Celebration, for those that don't know, is pretty much the Comic-Con of Star Wars, if you will. It was down in Orlando, Florida, and they had a lot of surprises out there. Now, Rian Johnson, who's the director of the forthcoming Star Wars movie in December, actually went out there for all the people that were standing in line overnight to get into that panel. He was out there for 3 hours, and he told everybody, just stay where you are. I'm going to come and take a picture and sign something for everybody in line. He made it all the way through the line. I thought that was pretty awesome. Also,
big time.
Yeah, and they were also treated. The audience in there was treated to a concert, and John Williams was actually on the podium there directing the orchestra, and they didn't know that was actually going to happen. Yeah, I would have lost my mind had I been there to see him up there and to hear this music live. And actually the last thing to recap is something that happened that I didn't think was going to happen was Hayden Christensen was there. And he was on a couple of panels and actually talked a little bit. And he actually got a warm reception from the people that were there, which, in my mind, I would think people would boo him. I'm not saying he deserves to be booed, but you know how some fans can be. So that's a bit of a recap for the celebration. On to the trailer real quick. Look, I'm going to come back to this at the end of the Star Wars talk because I got a lot to say. And I want everybody to get their words out because I got a lot of info to give the fans. Or as far as theories go. So I'll pass it back to Malcolm, and I'll come back to it at the end.
Okay. I'm coming into the Star Wars fold. Kevin and Jeremy and other people have been bringing me in slowly but surely. So I'm really going to get dedicated in a sense and start checking out Star Wars for what it is as a whole. So I enjoyed seeing that. This is, when I go to comic conventions, I always see a lot of Star Wars cosplay. But the stills and the photos and the videos I saw, it is like there are like 500 Princess Leias, 1,200 Han Solos, 1,300 Chewbacca's, about 4,000 Stormtroopers. Everybody is in some kind of Star Wars cosplay, whether it is canon as far as movies and TV shows and cartoons go, or if they even invented their own type of cosplay. Now, that some people are really, really against that. Like, you got a lot of these legions of cosplayers who stick strictly to what they see in the movies and the television shows when it comes to cosplay. So, Jeremy, what was your thoughts on Star Wars Celebration?
When you started talking about that, like kind of variations on cosplays, I was thinking about one that I saw. It was like the red jumpsuit that dude in Run DMC used to wear, and it had the gigantic gold chain on the front of it. It had like little black stripes on the side.
Oh, I thought it was, yeah.
So funny, man. That was like a really funny, cool idea. But, yeah, Star Wars Celebration. Well, it's a huge gathering of Star Wars fans, some lifelong, some relatively new, and it's great. It's a fantastic thing that people are embracing it so much. I'm already getting to the point, and I don't mean to sound like a hipster, but I'm already getting to the point that I'm worried about oversaturation. Like, I love Star Wars movies because they're special, and they were always events, and it was something to look forward to and anticipate, sometimes for years. And now it's an embarrassment of riches. Now we're going to have Star Wars probably till we have grandchildren or whatever, and as of right now, I have loved everything that I've seen. I mean, with the exception of episode 1 and 2, which not a big fan of those movies. And if it were Jake Lloyd coming out on stage, I might have booed him. But Hayden Christensen did what he could with his material. You know, he tried.
Yep.
I don't think that you can blame an actor for George Lucas's shortcomings of being able to work well with actors. So as far as celebration, the couple of highlights to me, obviously, got to give a shout-out for the Carrie Fisher tribute. That was very moving, very touching. And I think it's noteworthy that Ewan McGregor was not there, especially with all of the discussions about an Obi-Wan movie and a solo Obi-Wan outing that could be like a Western. I mean, I've been hearing them talk about this for months now, and the fact that he wasn't down there at Celebration makes me wonder why. Obviously, Lucasfilm and Disney, they've got the cash to fork over to get those people down. I mean, they were able to get Harrison Ford there, so you know they've got enough money to get, you know, these celebrities to show up. But that's kind of my thoughts on Celebration. I do wish I was there. I'd love to go. You know, this was the 40th anniversary. Sadly, I don't think the 50th anniversary is going to have the same cast. I don't know that John Williams is going to be there. I don't know that George Lucas is going to be there. I don't know that Harrison Ford's going to be there. I mean, you really can't know how these things are going to go. So this was a pretty big deal for fans, you know. And then as far as the trailer goes, it was great. It was really, really great. I enjoyed everything that I saw from it. Something that's kind of been a carryover from Rogue One and from The Force Awakens, which I absolutely love, and that is, back in the day, there was good and bad. There was the light side of the Force. There was the dark side of the Force. And ever since you see Finn in the first scene of the raid on The Force Awakens, and his buddy gets shot down and rubs the blood on his mask, and you can see that they're humanizing stormtroopers. You'd never seen a stormtrooper with their helmet off. You never had to think of them as humans or as people. They were just kind of cannon fodder, you know, like the Ultron robots or whatever.
Right.
But now that we have these new movies, you see Cassian Andor. Is that right, Cassian Andor?
Yeah, I think you got it right.
Anyways, yeah, at the very beginning of Rogue One, when he straight up shoots that informant in the back in cold blood, and you're like, okay, so now I've seen stormtroopers that are good. Now I've seen rebellion people that really will do whatever they have to do to get the job done, and I just really like the shades of gray that they're throwing in there. You see Kylo struggling with the light. You see Rey struggling with the dark, and I think that's where the arc is going to be. Is Rey going to push over all the way into the dark side? Is Kylo going to have that redemption arc, or are they going to have a moment of reconciliation at the end of this trilogy where they're both like turn on Snoke, you know, similar to the first Star Wars? But yeah, loved it, loved the imagery, can't wait to see the movie.
Now, Kevin, you did say you had something to break down for us about that trailer. Go ahead and let us know about that.
Okay, so when Jeremy just kind of touched what's going on in the Star Wars universe right now. If you back it up, and I know a lot of people don't know this, but I'm going to go ahead and clue them in, and I've talked about this before. Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon that comes on Disney XD, is the one thing that's part of Star Wars canon right now. All the stuff that we've read and we've known in the past outside of the movies has been moved to what you call Star Wars Legends. Okay, so it's not necessarily part of canon. What I mean by that is like the number of kids and the names of the kids that Han and Leia have. They have some twins. They have another son. That's not part of canon anymore. That's part of Legends. So now you talk about the light and the dark and balance in the Force. I'm going to submit to you, and this is not everything I'm about to say is my own theory or is original thoughts of KG, but I can tell you I put a lot of time into thinking about this. So some of this stuff is little pieces I've grabbed from here and there, and I'm kind of putting two and two together. In Star Wars Rebels, there's an episode where the lead character, Ezra, comes across this giant moose-looking buffalo thing called the Bendu. The Bendu was actually the original name of the Jedi that George Lucas picked out before he changed it in the script. Okay? The Bendu tells Ezra, the Jedi see the light, the Sith see the dark, I'm the one that's in the middle. Okay? That is part of canon now because it's on that cartoon. Luke has some books, and And he makes a statement at the end of that trailer saying, pretty much the Jedi has to be over. I mean, that's not his exact words, but pretty much. What I'm submitting to you all right now in this podcast is that Luke has found out maybe what he believes to be the true nature of the Force. And I can tell you that we've been looking at two sides try to balance an equation, and they never get it right. We go back to the Jedi Temple and Yoda and, the council of the Jedi Master. They were always talking about eradicating the Sith and bringing balance to the Force. However, how can you balance something if you get rid of the dark side people? Look at the dark side. They wanted to get rid of the Jedi. How can you have balance if the dark doesn't have any light? So my thing is, a lot of times Star Wars fans look at Yoda and those guys as all-powerful. We know different because he could not actually, beat the Emperor in that big throne room. And also, if you go back to Episode 3, and I'm talking deep cuts here, think about what happens at the end of that movie. Right before they drop Obi-Wan Kenobi off to go into exile, Yoda says, I have training for you, and I got this training from your old master. Qui-Gon Jinn is the one that taught Yoda how to become one with the Force. Yoda teaches Obi-Wan how to do it, and that's how they both do it. What I'm submitting to you guys on this phone is the Force ghosts and the people who have gone beyond in this movie may have shown Luke what the true nature of the Force is or led him to where he is now and where his mind is at. So you got that whole side of it. And then you got the side of he's tried to start a new Jedi temple, and those kids got killed and they got burned down. So you got a whole bunch of balance going back and forth here. And if you look at Kylo Ren, like Jeremy just brought up about Finn and everybody here, now you're seeing people do things on both sides. And I think that's going to be the change in this generation of Star Wars. It won't just be light and dark. It'll be people doing things they need to do to get their objective complete. So that's my spiel. I know I'm long-winded on it, but I had to put this out here for the fans so we can talk about it.
No, man, that's fantastic observations. To tell you the truth, I didn't remember that Qui-Gon was the one that trained Yoda in the ways of the Force. So that's like insight to me, but I got a lot of confidence that what you're saying is going to come to fruition, man, so that's great insight.
Most definitely, guys. And while we're on such a big production of franchise of Star Wars, let's move on to another big franchise and some news that just came out recently within the last 24 hours. Talking about the Spiderman Sony contract with Sony/Marvel Disney, however you want to put it. They're stated that the contract is going to end after the Spider-Man sequel. So that Spider-Man has a couple of more movies left. Tom Holland originally signed a 6-movie deal. So we've seen him in Civil War. We've seen him in we're going to see him in Spider-Man Homecoming. After that, we're going to see him in Avengers Infinity War. We're going to see him in Avengers 4 and, of course, Spider-Man 2. So there's some other appearance or movie that he's going to be in, maybe in between that period of time. But the contract is supposed to end after the Spider-Man sequel. Do you guys, and I'm going to start with Jeremy first, think that they're going to renew this contract, or do you think Sony is going to feel like they have some balls now with Spider-Man because Marvel made it look good and they're going to move forward?
You know, this kind of touches back to a conversation that the three of us had a couple of weeks ago about what the discussion at the bargaining table was between Sony and Marvel, about what their ulterior motives were or what they were thinking behind the scenes. And obviously, as of now, all we can really do is speculate. But I would, by the track record that's in the precedent that Sony has set themselves, if these next 2 Spider-Man movies aren't financially viable, if the critical reception isn't good, they're going to hand it all over to Marvel. I mean, that's what they kind of did the first time around, right? So that's the if things don't go right, of course Sony will do that. If things do go well, I can see Sony kind of start to pull back and say, hey, maybe we can do something with this. Maybe this is our cash cow and we can bring it back home to Sony. However, I don't know how the fans are going to react to that at this point when you see how divisive the news about a Venom standalone film is. So it's confusing. I would say all of this will have a little bit better of an indicator after Spider-Man Homecoming is released. However, in my mind, I do not see Spider-Man separate from the Avengers anymore at this point.
Kevin, what's your take on this news?
Okay, so to go back to what we talked about a little bit before is this negotiating table and the fact that you do realize they left themselves enough room where Tom Holland owes Sony one more movie after the Marvel contract is up. So this is, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that's going to tell the tale, and I agree with everything Jeremy just said. There's a couple of things that I can tell you right now. If they can't build up a universe that Spider-Man can play in, a couple of movies they got coming out, and it doesn't seem like they're trying to do that, they don't need to come back and try to take that property over. Now, I can tell you this. Sony has a lot of money, and what they might do is try to go out and hire all the people that worked on this Spider-Man movie with Marvel and bring them over and just try to recreate that magic. There's a lot of different ways they can go about it. I'm going to tell you this, though. When you have this property in MCU and this Spider-Man movie couldn't do $1 billion, because Spider-Man can do that. He can do $1 billion. If this movie does as much money as we think or whatnot, all they're going to do is re-up with Marvel. Because you would rather have that one cash cow that's making all this money as opposed to trying to get this other stuff off the ground. And I think that the fact the Venom movie has been a big deal, and they're saying, hey, this isn't going to be connected to Spider-Man. This is going to be different. They're leaving themselves room with their own property to get themselves, to keep it separate so that way in case Spider-Man stays with Marvel. Because everything they've done so far, they haven't made one move to let us even believe that Spider-Man is coming back home. They haven't, as far as their movies and everything goes, they don't have a plan. They're not saying, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. All they said is, hey, that's when the partnership is over.
Right.
I honestly and truly really think everything they're doing is to leave room to go back and re-up and sign that deal. The only problem with that is that I think when Marvel comes back to the table, the terms may not be ones that they may be coming back to get Spider-Man at this point. They may come back with a cash offer to say, look, we gave George Lucas $4 billion for Star Wars. We're ready to give you $1 billion for Spider-Man and call it fair. And at that point, Sony's going to have to make a decision because that cash offer, that's a real, that's something that you have to really sit back and think about, So I don't know, man, but I'll tell you this. I don't want Sony trying to make Spider-Man movies. They've proven to us because they can't do a franchise. They got in Sam Raimi's way. They trashed the third movie because they wanted to have all these inputs and everything and throw Venom in there. And then the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one was decent, and then the second one you put Jamie Foxx, with that crap, man. It was crap.
Oh, God.
They don't know how to make a Spider-Man movie without Norman Osborn and everything or whatever. So I don't want them to have it. So I hope that they find their way to Marvel and make this deal work. And I hope that's the way it goes. But I tell you, I think their executives still don't get it. It was a dumb decision for her to come out and make this type of announcement at this point. Why would you make an announcement like this when you're trying to sell and market a movie? You don't want people thinking about the end of your partnership with Marvel. You want people thinking about Spider-Man Homecoming.
Man, but like you said, Kevin, and I'm not trying to step on your toes, but you nailed it a minute ago. It's like she didn't make an announcement. She answered a question. And that's a little bit different of a thing. I understand it's semantics at that point, but all she did was state the facts. It's not like she went out to a press junket and was like, hey, everybody, I've got an announcement to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And in that context, I can see it. But if I'm up there, I'm not giving that answer. I'll put it like that. No. But you're right, though. You're right. It wasn't. Right too. Let's put it in the right context. She didn't call a press conference. You're right. She answered a question, and she was truthful about it. But at the same time, I just think I wouldn't have answered it that way. But yeah, you're exactly 100% right. There's no way that I want you focused on that because the fact that you're partnering with Marvel has already let everybody know you can't do it.
Yep.
So that's my spiel, man. But guys, look, I gotta jump off. To all the fans listening, I love you, but I got a photo shoot, so I'll get back with y'all. Kill it, fellas. I'll talk to y'all a little later.
Most definitely. We're going to continue on. And, guys, don't forget to check out Kevin Gardner's company, Hubster Photography. That's Hubster Photography. It's on Instagram. It's on Facebook as well. Check it out. Does some amazing photography in the California area. So for me, when it comes to this Spider-Man news, it's like I got a question. I'm gonna pose this question to you, Jeremy, because it comes across my mind. Does Marvel really need Spider-Man as a character? I mean, it's not like Marvel was doing bad before they got Spider-Man. You get what I'm saying? What's your thoughts on that?
No, they don't. They don't need Spider-Man. I mean, and that's where they're at right now with their negotiation tactics. It's like, oh, okay, you don't want to play ball? Well, we don't need you anyways. We made this stack of money off of a bunch of B and C string Marvel characters. Don't get me wrong. Captain America, super popular. The Hulk, super popular. Iron Man was a little bit further down the list, prior to the 2008 movie. So I don't think they do need Spider-Man. I really don't. But I also feel like Spider-Man is such a marquee character that they could use him. Regardless if they need him or not, they can certainly use him. And what Spider-Man does really well is sells merchandise. He sells action figures. He sells comic books. He sells clothes and backpacks and cereal. You know what I mean? Anything you can think of, slap Spider-Man on it, and it's going to make money. And I think that's, at the end of the day, even if I don't know exactly how all the rights are divvied up, I don't know who gets the merchandising rights between them and Sony, but that's a big component of the Spider-Man character that people don't put into the equation of how much these movies are going to gross. But I think they don't need it, Malcolm, and I just feel like that's the same deal with the X-Men. It's the same deal with the Fantastic Four. Like, yeah, we could use them, but if you don't want to meet us on our terms, well, then fine. We'll go play in our own sandbox. And I think that's an interesting position for any studio to be in.
Now, like I said, for me, it's like, why would Sony not re-up the deal? And one thing about it is we're light years away from even the new contracts being signed and new thoughts being brought up. But I do agree with what Kevin and what you said as well. Like, this isn't news that we needed when you're trying to promote the first solo installment. Spider-Man had a piece of a role in Civil War, but this is a full-fledged Spider-Man movie. It's like a mechanic it's like you go take your car to a mechanic and they say, well, I don't know how to open, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm a good mechanic, definitely a good mechanic. And then they say, well, I don't know how to open the hood. How you going to work on my car? How can I trust you now? I'm iffy about it. So I do agree. It wasn't something, I feel like it wasn't something that needed to be said. Like you said, I agree with what you said. It wasn't an announcement. It was a question that she answered. But I do agree with what Kevin said. Like, that wouldn't have been my answer. I would have gave a more, not necessarily vague, I would have gave you an answer, or not even in regards to the actual fact. Not telling a lie, but like, a sidestep. And if you're good when it comes to being interviewed, you should know how to answer a question that will throw the reporter off or the interviewer off, to get them to end up asking something else and forgetting about what they asked in the beginning. But when you encourage their answer or encourage their question, at that time, once they get that one answer out of you, they're going to grill you for the rest of that interview. And what they need are good PR people over there. Sony apparently does not have a personal public relations board where they're sitting down saying, hey, all right, guys, Spider-Man's coming. We're about to do some good interviews. This is what not to say.
Right.
Pointing the stick on the board. Do not say anything about the future of this contract. And then that should be the end of the meeting. Just talk about the movie. Talk about what you think that we're doing as a company for Spider-Man, and move forward. Because this is what starts all the speculation. Now, another thing that started a lot of speculation was an executive from the Star Wars camp that came out and made this statement. I don't know if you heard it, but the statement that he made was, in the Han Solo movie, we're going to see how Han Solo got his name. That was the statement that he made. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
So what threw everybody off was they were like, wait a minute, so his real name is not Han Solo? That's where it comes in with how you talk and how you phrase things. Because when you say, for the average person, when you say how Han Solo got his name, they're going to think, wait a minute, so that's not his real name? This hasn't been his name for over 40 years? What's his real name? For the person who thinks on a more intellectual level, they're going to think his name as in who he is, but not his actual first and or last name, like who he is as the character. Like we can say, let's talk about how Dwayne Johnson got his name. Not how he got his name, Dwayne Johnson, but how he grew as a person, how he grew from a wrestler, an amateur wrestler, all the way up to a multi-billion-million-dollar movie star. So what's your take on that? Let's go back into that Star Wars real quick.
I think it's such a good example of exactly what we're talking about, and it comes down to semantics again. The Last Jedi, is Jedi singular or is Jedi plural? It's another one of these big fan speculation areas. But on a very literal term, when somebody says, we're going to tell you how he got his name, then I can see where the confusion comes from. I mean, that totally makes sense. But what you said, Malcolm, is that's the camp I'm in, is that Han Solo, he took the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. He's a scoundrel. He's a scruffy-looking nerf herder. He's all these names to all these people. He's got a reputation throughout the galaxy. And that's what I believe that they're talking about, is how did he become such a well-known rogue within the Star Wars universe? And the rest of it is just noise. Kathleen Kennedy had to come back and backtrack and say that's not what he meant, basically, to clarify, because so many people were just like kind of taken back by it, because it's exactly what you said. Nobody wants to know that Han Solo's name was really James Walters or some shit, you know. So let me say something about Kathleen Kennedy. You know the point I just made about that public relations person. This is the second time in the last 3 weeks that she's had to come out and say, "Hey, look, I know that guy said that or that person said that, but this is the real deal right here." Yep. Because she had to come in behind Carrie Fisher's brother to announce, like, hey, I understand what he said, but she's not going to be in 9. She's just going to be in 8. It's a great point. I didn't even think about that. But, yes, that was just now in the news as well. So it's like she's going around doing damage control for people that got
big-time damage control. So another thing that we got on the list today is the Fate of the Furious smashing the box office. Now, this is the 8th installment in this movie. Now, we're not going to do any spoilers on it. I haven't seen it yet. Jeremy, have you?
I didn't. I did not.
Okay, I'm thinking about going to see it. I'm just put it out there. I'm thinking about going to see it. Don't know yet. But it's doing big in the box office. I mean, and I personally feel like it's going to carry on this momentum all the way to Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy is just going to go ahead and knock it and take a place. Like, I already see that coming. So what's your thoughts on the Fate of the Furious doing so well as it is in the box office?
Couple of things, man. I'm not a huge fan of this franchise. I told a buddy from work, I was like, hey, man, I'm thinking about going and seeing Fate of the Furious. I've only seen Part 1 and Part 7. And he's like, dude, how are you going to watch Part 8 if you've only seen 2 of the movies? You've got to watch 4, 5, and 6 to know where this story originated from. So over the weekend, I started binge watching the Fast and Furious movies. I've seen 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 at this point, and it's a fun franchise. You know, like I can see the appeal of it. However, I do feel like people will make all sorts of excuses to why this is a fun movie, but nobody will say they're good movies. You know what I mean? Like everybody's like, they're dumb fun. You got to turn your brain off at the door, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's some good action movies where you don't have to turn your brain off at the door. So maybe it's just that audiences don't like having their brains on. You know, I don't know exactly. But on the other side of that, F. Gary Gray is a director that kind of came up real recently, hadn't done a lot prior to Straight Outta Compton and I can't remember what the other ones he did is off my head right now, but obviously black filmmaker, black movie director, the top grossing of all time. He stepped into this franchise and just totally dominated that record, even over Jordan Peele's Get Out, which was a cultural phenomenon just a couple of months ago. So props to them, or, props to F. Gary Gray, props to a cast that's actually really diverse, really representative of people that we don't always see in movies, and for giving audiences just something different. You can go see James Bond, you can go see Mission Impossible, you can go see all these different franchises that are 20 movies long, and it's kind of the same heroes, same team in all of those movies. So Fast and Furious definitely does have some things that are noteworthy about it. I did want to mention real quick that a lot of times global box office is a little bit deceptive because movies don't open in all markets at one time. If a movie opens here this week, it might open in China 2 weeks from then. It might open in Europe a week from then, or there's no real specifics to it from movie to movie. It's a little bit different depending on the distributors and all of these things. But Fast and Furious opened all markets at one time, so they were set up to dominate the box office. But in a way, that's cool. And I just think that I read enough box office and movie news stuff that it seems like every time a new movie comes out, it's breaking some sort of record. And I just think that the way that we quantify it is what it gets so weird. It's like, oh, this movie sold the most senior citizen tickets on the day after opening in North America. That's a record that it's breaking. And it's like, I don't know if it really is, but there is something to be said about the fact that, let's see, this movie opened up at 100, let's see. Hold on, I have the numbers right here in front of me. Oh, $437.2 million, which is just unbelievable. It's hit $500 million in a weekend. It's well on its way to hitting that $1 billion mark, which there's a dozen movies that have hit $1 billion ever. So it says something. It's captured something in the zeitgeist to where people really like it. But, like I said, I'm a little on the fence about the whole franchise. So
I think for me, I'm like you. I started watching the movies over these last couple of years, watching the rest of them. And they're that summer movie that comes out every couple of years where everybody's like, hey, we went and saw that a couple of summers ago. We were a little bit younger. We liked it. Let's go see it again.
Yeah.
I think that's, and people go see it. Of course, you got the new fans. You got kids who were about 6 when one of the movies came out. They weren't old enough to go see it. Now they're like 13 and 14, and it's the weekend movie they're going to see for spring because they're on spring break. You know what I'm saying? So you're grabbing a lot of different cash markets, and like you said, it hit everywhere. A lot of movies don't hit everywhere. For a movie, for me, for example, Power Rangers, it hasn't even opened up in the other international markets yet. It hasn't hit China and Japan and Korea,
Still?
Australia. Not yet. It's this month. A lot of them are hitting those markets this month.
Holy cow.
So, it's still upcoming. Still upcoming. So, if you're going to go check out Fate of the Furious, let us know in the comments what you think about it. Like I said, we haven't seen it yet. It's one of those things we're planning on going to see it, so we may get a chance to check it out. Another thing we want to jump to is Krypton. So this is something that the Sci-Fi Channel announced some years ago, and everybody's been wondering when we're going to get it, because all these other stations and TV shows were bringing out their comic book shows and everything, and we're finally getting Krypton. So we got the teaser trailer, and I did a reaction to the teaser. It's on the Fandom Talk YouTube channel, and I liked it. I liked the visuals. I like the story background for what we're going to get. I like how Krypton looks, and I think this is going to be a good hit for the Sci-Fi Channel. I really feel like this is going to be something good for the Sci-Fi Channel. So, Jeremy, did you get a chance to check out that trailer?
I did, man. The second you sent me a link, I was real curious about it. I checked it out. I liked it as well. I did see that Zack Snyder and David Goyer were involved, at least at a producer capacity. Goyer may have wrote it, or at least a treatment of it, but help me out here. This is before Krypton exploded. Are we spending this TV series with Jor-El, Kal-El? Is it Superman's father?
No, this is Superman's grandfather, Sig-El.
Okay. So it's even further back than that. And
it's
like you
way
said,
further back.
Krypton looks awesome. Krypton looks great. I will say that for every visual that I did like, there was another one before or after that was a little less positive from a reaction standpoint. There were a couple of things that looked a little bit cheap to me. But me and you talked a little bit about is the Inhumans going to be Game of Thrones for Marvel? I do feel like they're kind of going in this warring houses direction in Krypton, and I think that's a good thing. I think people are into that right now, so that's cool. And, yeah, I'll check it out. I'm fascinated enough by what I've seen that I'm actually curious about it. But Sci-Fi Channel kind of hits me in a spot where I just don't know what to think about that. We had the show Being Human that came out on Sci-Fi Channel several years ago at this point, and I liked it, and it had pretty good production value and all of that stuff. But past that, I'm not familiar enough with Sci-Fi Channel to know the quality or the standard of TV series that they have. So that's something I'm a little bit apprehensive of. But other than that, I liked what I saw.
Most definitely. Like I said, you made a valid point when it came to the houses. Because, you have the House of El, which is Superman's family and lineage. You have the House of Zod, which is General Zod's family and lineage. They have, clashings with each other, and I think that's going to get into the story as well, because that clash, that family dynamic between the two families is one of the big reasons that Krypton fell. So I'm excited for Krypton to hit the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm kind of pessimistic, especially when they said Sci-Fi Channel, because if I'm not mistaken, is it that where we get the Sharknado movies at?
Yes, it is.
Oh, so Sci-Fi Channel is cool, but honestly, with it being announced, I don't even think I couldn't see another channel that it could be on with the direction that they're going in it in. Like, I wouldn't want this on, as much as I love my CW TV, DC TV shows, I wouldn't want this on the CW. I feel like this is a serious matter that has to be taken. Krypton being or blowing up or imploding is something very serious and deep. It's something that we never really get into in comics, movies, or TV shows. It's just like Krypton blew up, and this is what Superman's doing. Krypton blew up, and this is what Supergirl's doing. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, we're finally going to get to see the inner workings, the backgrounds of what really and actually happened, and we can move forward. Now, I will say on the Supergirl TV show, it went into it a little bit. There was this one episode where it was reminiscent or set apart, like if you remember the Justice League TV show, and there was an episode where there was this parasite that had took over Superman's body. You remember that?
I hadn't seen it.
It was from the old cartoon, and Parasite took over Superman's body, and he was in a dream state, whereas if everything in his life that went wrong was correct. So in that dream state, Krypton was still existing. He had a family, he had kids, all of that good stuff. And they did that on Supergirl, that same type of parasite. And in that reality that she was in, that dream state, Krypton was still active. Everything was good and she was able to see the background of why Krypton got destroyed. So it'll be good for that focus to be on Krypton and what happened before, and more than likely the series might end with Krypton imploding or exploding.
If it goes well, I'm trying to pitch the Alderaan movie from before Alderaan got blown up on A New Hope. Same deal.
You heard it here first, guys. BTR Productions presents Alderaan before the destruction. Right. Most definitely. So we're going to move on to one of our last topics of the day, Guardians of the Galaxy. We're not too far away from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's going to be a mega hit coming out on May 5th. We're definitely excited here about this. And 2 points came out. The first one is that Guardians of the Galaxy is going to have 5 different post-credit scenes. Ooh. Now, one can speculate what these post-credit scenes are going to be about. We could have some type of tie-in with Infinity War, some type of tie-in with Black Panther. And when you say 5, when you say 2, it's like you can probably just guess what those 2 are going to be, Black Panther and Infinity War, okay? But when you say 5, that's a whole different ball game. And it can be something leading up to Black Panther, something leading up for Thor Ragnarok, something leading up for Infinity War. Because we're not going to see these characters again until Infinity War. So there are so many different random possibilities. Like you could put all these possibilities in a bowl on a piece of paper and pull one out and just make a post-credit scene about. And it'll make sense because it's going to tie in with what's upcoming. It could even be something showing something for Spiderman Homecoming. We really don't know. But I feel like these are going to be maybe a couple of short different scenes as the credits roll. Maybe could be 10 to 15 seconds apiece maybe. But I personally feel like there are so many different possibilities that can be done with these end credit scenes. Jeremy, what's your take on that?
Man, once we talked about it a little bit, I was trying to make a mental note. 5 of them. What could 5 Guardians of the Galaxy post-credit scenes be? And then I started thinking the first one had that Howard the Duck scene, the post-credit with Howard the Duck. Who would have been able to guess that? If you would have asked either of us before Guardians of the Galaxy came out, hey, what's the post-credit scene going to be? Oh, it's going to be Howard the Duck chilling at a phone booth. Who would have ever thought? So there's really no way of knowing. James Gunn is a consistently inconsistent director. He likes to mix it up. He likes to, subvert expectations. So whatever we think it might be, it could totally not be that. But I was thinking about it. I know there's going to be a Infinity War / Thor Ragnarok post-credit scene. It just makes sense. It's out in the galaxy. It's upcoming. I would be a little more surprised if there was a Black Panther post-credit scene just because of how little crossover there is there with with Black Panther being Wakanda-based, Earth-based. And I know that they're technologically advanced, but I don't know that they're traveling out to the fringes of outer space or that Black Panther would be out there. So I'm not so sure about that one. I know that there's been rumors of a Rocket and Groot solo movie, so I'm almost 100% sure we're going to get a post-credit with Rocket and Groot. We've got the post-credit with the Infinity War Ragnarok tie-in. I would think part of me was like, man, they could just do a post-credit scene with each of the Guardians, but there's more than 5 of them now. But I wouldn't be surprised if what we get is a couple little snippets of just mundane conversations, silly little throwaway one-liners that just kind of, whet our appetite for the next one. But it's just hard to know. I do think that there's a high potential of seeing at least part of the post-credit scenes tying into the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think we're about to talk about it here in a second, but with the confirmation of a Guardians of the Galaxy free, maybe that's what he's going to tease.
True, that's true. And and that was our next thing. But to touch on what you said, I kind of recant my Black Panther, and I'm gonna move Black Panther to a Thor Ragnarok post credit scene. But sure. Even then, being so, that would kind of match up either because we're leaving Thor Ragnarok from in space. But again, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of that movie. So it's so many possibilities with 5 different post-credit scenes. Yeah, one could be I feel like out of the 5, I'm going to put it like this. This is my prediction. Out of the 5 post-credit scenes, I feel like only 2 of them are going to be next movie tires, and the other 3 might be. It's a different. It could be 3 movie tie-ins and 2 funny ha-ha moments, or 2 movie tie-ins and 3 funny ha-ha moments.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet, man.
Because Guardians is going to give you that funny ha-ha, but it's also going to give you a nice, good upcoming. So there's no telling what we're going to get. from those Guardians post-credit scenes, and there's no telling what we're going to get, especially with the news of James Gunn saying that he's going to be doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I'm totally excited about that. I'm glad that he's going to be on the helm to do that movie, because I couldn't see anybody else doing another Guardian. I couldn't see him bowing down and say, hey, I had fun while it lasted. I'm moving on to other things. So I'm going to let somebody do Guardians 3. I think the dynamic would totally shift. I think the whole art and thought and process of the movie would crumble. And that's just me personally. What do you think, Jeremy?
Again, man, I totally agree with you. James Gunn is one of the 3 filmmakers that ever worked over at Marvel Studios that has just been able to communicate his vision with Kevin Feige to the point that Feige's like, do your movie, man. And I think that is just such a testament to how good of a communicator he is, but then even more than that, how solid his vision is, that he's able to articulate his thoughts, his vision, his ideas, and convince the top dog over at Marvel, like, hey, we're going to do this my way, and it's going to work. And you know, James Gunn constructed that whole entire thing, the relationships between the characters. I just feel like there's such synergy on the set of, I mean, we can only speculate about part 2, but there was such a synergy and such a good vibe between all of the cast. They all worked together so well. The visual aesthetic is so distinctively its own thing. And I just think for all of those reasons, I agree with you. Like, I don't trust that anybody else could step in and do those movies any more than I trust somebody else stepping in to direct Return of the King at the end of Peter Jackson's trilogy. It's like, that's Peter Jackson's movie. What are you going to do? Come in there and change everything, you know? So I just say, let James Gunn make his 3rd movie. Let him complete this story arc and this trilogy that he wants to do. And let's hope that it's a good one, because, 3rd ones are typically the least critically well-received. You know, we've seen it, whether we're talking about the original Star Wars trilogy. Some people say Return of the Jedi is the weakest chapter because of Ewoks or whatever. Whether we're talking about the Dark Knight trilogy, where everybody knows Dark Knight Rises is not as good. Even if you really like it, you still know it's not as good as Batman Begins or the Dark Knight. So I think that there's a chance that he could nail this movie. He could make one of the best trilogies of all time. But then we look at Sam Raimi, and we see what happened with Spider-Man 3, and it's like, it would be a shame for him to stick with it and make these 2 phenomenal movies and then just fall off at the end and make something that nobody likes. I mean, I would rather see a person walk away with their reputation intact than somebody stick around too long and people think less of them as a filmmaker.
But one point I want to make about those movies and those other franchises that you brought up, a lot of those, or most of those, almost 100% of those that you mentioned, when it got to that 3rd one, somebody else had their hands in the pot too. But when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy and Marvel movies, Kevin Feige is like, hey, like you said, make your movie. Mm-hmm. So with that thought process in mind, it's almost like I'm not necessarily worried about the 3rd one being a freshman, sophomore, junior slump, because Kevin Feige is not going to get in his way. He's not going to. He's going to let him do what he needs to do, just as he let him do number 1, just the same as he let him do number 2. He's not going to get in his way for number 3. You know, and that's the thing. I feel that with Kevin Feige being at the head, he keeps the big dog, nothing about, the movies and the comics, away from that level of the producers and the directors and the writers. Kevin Feige is like that guy where they're up here and they're like, okay, what are you guys gonna do with this movie? Kevin Feige's like, hey, look, I got this. You guys know where. Just keep signing the contracts, keep signing the checks. I got everybody down here. You understand? And having that separate. And when we look at all these other franchises and these other movies, where it's like everything is meshed together, everybody's in the same meeting room, everybody's in the same office, and then there are so many ideas. You got somebody that just sits and collects a check and says, yeah, let's paint Jamie Foxx blue. Or everybody think about that? Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Peterson. Yes, sir. That sounds great. Let's all do that. Everybody agree? Yes, everybody. And then that, that thing happens. So I don't think that'll happen over here at Marvel. And same thing with, like you said, you brought it to Spider-Man 3. The executives all in the room. Let's get Spider-Man. Let's get Tobey Maguire. Let him go in a coffee bar, in a nightclub, and let's put him on some black eyeshadow. Let's make him a little bit emo, and let's let him walk down the street and dance. What does everybody think about that? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Thompson. Yes, sir. I think that's amazing. Great. Awesome. Because everybody's kissing butt so they can keep their job. But over at Marvel, I don't think that they have that issue over there. I think they're still going to let James Gunn do what he needs to do to make a good Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I mean, what do you think about that comparison?
I mean, yeah, that's 100% right. You brought up a really good point. There are a couple exceptions to the rule. Like, nobody was telling George Lucas anything by the time he made Return of the Jedi. However, I think that there is 100% value. And, I mean, you look at The Dark Knight Rises. When you look at Spider-Man 3, there was studio interference. Not only did they put the emo Peter Parker in the Spider-Man 3, they put Venom in there when Sam Raimi didn't even like the character. He wanted it to be a Sandman-centered movie, and they were like, hey, Venom's really hot with the kids. We got to put Venom in there because the fans want to see Venom. And they just, shoehorned him in there, screwed up a trilogy of – I love the first two Spider-Man movies. I think they are so good. A lot of people prefer the second one to the first one, man, but I will never have the same feeling again as I did the first time I saw Spider-Man swinging through New York City. And you're, in that POV shot, and that was amazing to me. I went and saw that movie 5 or 6 times in the theaters just trying to catch that feeling again because it was just incredible. That was one of the first big comic book movie adaptations that we got that felt authentic. We had the X-Men movie, but the visual effects in X-Men weren't great. The superheroes didn't look like what we thought they were gonna, and then here comes Spider-Man swinging in just out of one of the pages of the comics. But I did want to say also, to your point, and just to kind of cap my end of it, because you nailed a lot of it, man. But I would have a better bit of insight. I'd have a more clear indicator of what my actual thought process will be after I see Infinity War, because the Russo brothers, they did Captain America: Winter Soldier. Incredible, one of the best movies of any genre. Then they came out and they did Civil War. They took 5 times more working parts and characters and everything you could think of, and they crammed it into Civil War. And it was unbelievable. It was incredible. And now that we're getting to Infinity War, we're talking about 68 major notable characters in it. So once it gets to juggling so many different storylines and plots and all of that, I get a little bit concerned. So seeing what the Russos do with their third outing and seeing how true to form that it is for them will let me know about how I feel that how much I feel the studio's involved in that process. So we're just going to have to let it play out, man. But as of right now, I am so pumped about Guardians 2. I really want to say that for the last 2 months, we've probably had a Guardians headline 6 times, Well,
guys, we thank you for joining us today. Jeremy, what's going on over there at Be Terrible Production?
Man, about a week ago when me and you were doing the podcast, I was like, one of the most important things is to post regularly. You got to post all the time. And I haven't been heeding my own advice. I've not been posting as much as I should for the past couple of days because I am working on a huge, huge project. I've got it in the works. I'm excited to roll it out. It's something a little different for me, related to horror films and movie monsters, things like that. So y'all be on the lookout for it here at Fandom Talk every Wednesday, same time, same place. Check out BeTerrible.com to stay up to date with all the terrible content, and make sure to check out Jeremy B. Terrible on Twitter.
And, guys, you know who we are. We're Fandoms Anonymous. And if you don't, we're FANDOMS, ANONYMOUS. We're all over social media. We're on Facebook. Come join the group and have discussions with us. Also like the page on Facebook as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you're watching this episode of Fandom Talk. And also don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Twitter is at anonymous_fan17. Instagram is at fandoms_anonymous17. We got a lot more coming up. Got 2 new episodes of Fandom Mail coming up. Got another one-on-one series I did with my man Eternity Everlasting. It's called Spoken Word 101. And we got some other upcoming one-on-one people that we're doing with the one-on-one series, so that's going on pretty good. Got a lot of stuff slated, a lot of people to interview, a lot of people to talk to. Also, guys, for in the area where we are, we're in the southeastern United States, along the Alabama and Jeremy's over there in Pensacola, Florida. QuestCon is coming up in October. It is going to be an amazing convention in Mobile, Alabama, so look out for QuestCon. Search QuestCon on Facebook, and you can find them on social media as well. Just want to throw that out there. So, guys, we do thank you for joining us today, and as I always say, if there isn't anything else, have a good one.